Sydney is Tim Johnston. He's the Asia Programme Director at the International Crisis Group. Tim Johnston, very good to have you with us. What do you make of these drills, first and foremost? What's your stance on that?
Well, it's worth noting, Jane, that these are annual drills. They do hold them every year, although it looks as though this year they have brought them forward by about 3 weeks. And I don't think that's a coincidence ahead of next Tuesday's verdict. I think there are a couple of other things that are significant. I think the fact that they're being held north of the Paracel Islands, it's the least contested part of the South China Sea, although after last year they do seem to have shifted them slightly south and west. So I think this is making a statement, but it's not quite as belligerent a statement as they might make if, for instance, they decided to do it much further south near either the Scarborough Shoal, which is claimed by the Philippines, or the Spratlys, which has multiple claimants.
How dangerous is the situation in the South China Sea, considering all the players involved, considering all the claims? What are we really looking at here, realistically?
There are 5 main countries contending. You've got the Philippines, you've got China, of course, Vietnam, Brunei, Indonesia, standing on the edge. Malaysia does have a territorial claim. And then you've got the US running the 7th Fleet on their freedom of navigation operations. So there are a lot of moving parts. And I think as you see economies starting to slow in Asia, nationalism is going to rise. And that's going to make it a much more volatile situation. It's going to be much harder for anyone to back down. And China has very much nailed its colours to the mast on this one. It says its 9-dash line, this big loop that runs south from the Chinese coast and takes almost the whole of the China Sea up. They've said that that is their sovereign territory. They haven't quite defined what that means in terms of allowing other people access, allowing cargo ships access. Somewhere between a third and a quarter of the world's cargo goes through the South China Sea. So I think it's very volatile. I think, having said that no one around the South China Sea wants to go to war. It's a question of whether they can find a comfortable place to stop. Because certainly at the moment
there's a frustrating delay here,
at
Tim.
a more sort of conflict-prone stance.
How important do you think the court case is at the International Court? How pivotal is that to what's happening at the moment?
I think it is pivotal, but I think it's worth noting what it will not do. What it won't do is sort out the very difficult questions about sovereignty in the South China Sea. What it will do is it will decide whether, particularly these islands that China has been building in the South China Sea, whether they deserve a 12 nautical mile territorial sea, whether they deserve a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. So I think it will clarify the situation, but also the flexibility that we have nowadays is sometimes a good thing because it means that people aren't locked in. This is going to make it harder to ignore. So I think it could go both ways. And I think the fact that China hasn't pushed the button harder with these exercises is probably a good sign. But we'll have to wait until after Tuesday's rulings to see exactly what effect it has on the broader geostrategic implications in the South China Sea.
And that we shall do. Thank you, Tim Johnston.